If you were looking for inspiration to get amazing content, get the soul from your dealership and convey it to the customers, you're in the right place. I'm talking with Jordan Cox here, who is one of the true creatives in the automotive industry, who has a passion for going through dealerships, interviewing staff, pulling out amazing sound bites, clips, things that can be used in content, things that can be used in advertising. And he's got a lot of experience that he's able to share a lot of what he's learned over the years in this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jordan Cox. I'm Andrew Street. This is Word on the Street. So, uh, I think like you and Ashley have a much deeper history than the times that you and I have come across each other, just like through
Oh, sure.
David Kane and at those events. How did you guys get connected?
So we were very lucky because we were in the same 20 group for a long time. It was moderated by David Kane, and what I loved was that what David did was he created this space for great ideas to come and bubble up to the top. Like, yes, there's always like the best idea competition, but even in conversation, because he's such a keen moderator, David does an excellent job at getting all of these different voices involved in a conversation between 20 dealers. And for those who don't know what a 20 group is, it's 20 dealers across the country that have a similar position. They're in different markets. They get together 3 times a year for a 3-day meeting. They spend time community building and getting to know each other. But more importantly, they talk about stuff that moves the needle performance-wise for their specific roles. So one group might be Chevrolet owners. One group might be for Toyota owners. One group might just be GMs and leaders within automotive. And the one that Ashley and I were in together, along with a lot of other of our friends that are still friends today, is it was for internet. So that was like a very vague term and still is a very vague term. So you had BDC managers in there. You had marketing directors in there. You had people who were digital focused. Sometimes you had more traditional focused people in there. Sometimes you also had operators in there, like COOs that were a part of those conversations. But that's really how Ashley and I met. And we just grew to know each other, like each other, do fun things together. And that kind of blossomed into a friendship along with a lot of other people in that 20 group.
So it wasn't general managers, general sales managers, principals. This was specifically internet.
Correct. And again, like they use internet really vague. So like Ashley and I were both marketing roles. So like that's cool because you have someone who Ashley had a really high focus on the social side of it. I had a lot more like higher level for marketing because I had to do a bunch of different random things within my dealer group. We had a Toyota store, 2 Chevy stores, and 2 used points. Ashley was a part of 19 stores that did social throughout those, whether it's paid analytic tracking for what Ashley was doing, even getting down to like the basic creation and kind of like guiding those teams on how to do that. I always loved learning like Ashley's tactics. And again, that's what 20 groups were so valuable about is you can have all these different tactics that people know and someone can drop one small nugget and this is going to be hyperbolic, but it can literally change your life in the way that you view that one thing.
And in my experience, like what a compliment from the dealer to invest in the staff and to you and to
That's right.
help grow your career and your skill set
That's
by
right.
putting you into a 20 group like that.
That's exactly right. And there's so much, like just like you said, there's so much expense attached to that. There's travel, there's time out of the dealership, there's a membership to be a part of that as a whole. Now ours wasn't as expensive as other ones were. I know that GMs and owners normally they go to more exotic places and they spend more time there. And a lot of times, if you're the owner of the store, you also take your family. So that's a little bit different conversation. But for us, like it was all about getting better and educating and just growing through that format. And that was the way that the dealer could invest in us. It's not common to see that. And one thing I always tell people is if you have an employee at your store that you want to help grow to the next level, get them in a 20 group. That's the super easy way to get that going.
And so were you doing the marketing? Were you handling marketing and starting to shoot creative before you got into the 20 group?
Yeah, I was. So like at that time, so there were really 2 people that were involved in marketing when I was at Gates Automotive. So there was myself, digital marketing director, and then we also had a traditional director. We worked really closely with our variable ops director across all of the entire group. And we were kind of the ones that really led where we were going with our marketing, whether it was paid traditional, social efforts that we were using as far as like executing content. And one of my responsibilities was just really just overseeing like the management of social. And then what I grew that into was doing more content and creating more content and really showing the value and why it's so important to get our sales staff involved in those pieces.
And okay, so you started shooting a lot of content inside the dealership
Yeah,
versus relying heavily on just like OEM shot assets, things like that.
for
Did you
sure.
find did you find a fit? Like what was kind of like the how did you find out that it was just going to be more effective to get grassroots content shot on the ground with the stores versus relying on, cookie cutter stuff?
Yeah. So if you look at the majority of how dealers would view social, especially at the time. So when I say the time, I mean, look at like, let's say 2012 to like 2020, like that range. And my time at Gates was between 2019 and 2023. So during that time, dealers viewed social as getting a subscription to a company like Brandbox and just doing these really cookie cutter graphics about a Chevrolet Traverse and putting that on social. And then they would be upset when that would only get in front of 10 or 15 people within Facebook, or on Instagram, it wouldn't even get any likes or get any reach. Like that's what social was to them, was just doing stuff like that. They didn't really understand that, hey, the main core of social media is having people involved in that. And what we discovered through really low hanging fruit is if we talked more about our team and bragged about our employees, we could put that out on social, have them talk about why they're excited about where they work, why it's a good place to come buy a vehicle from, and really why they love this community and why they love growing in that. And that content would blossom. So we started doing employee spotlight videos at a medium production value. So it's not shot on your phone. You shoot them on a DSLR, use decent audio, stuff like that. And we would just let these employees, in a way, we would interview them. They would just be the ones on camera. We would let them brag about themselves in a great way. And they would share what their goals are and their vision is, and why they love this community so much. And when they did that, and then we tagged them on social and they shared it, it got in front of way more people. So that is like low hanging fruit on what dealers could be doing, especially back then. And now it's the same way. If you can have your employees talk about why they love where they work, why they love their community, and what they're passionate about, where they're really authentic and that lets them light up, that's where social is for dealers these days.
Do you find the staff to be apprehensive to do it,
100%.
to be on camera?
100%. All the time, baby.
Did you find the same thing, Ashley?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the only time you had someone raising their hand was if they loved being on camera, and those are few and far between, or they would raise their hand if there was money involved. So, sometimes you had to spiff them like, "Hey, $100, get on camera," and they would do it.
That's right.
But, yeah,
And
other
so
than that, they would, like, go like this, and you'd show up with the camera.
exactly. And I'm even imagining what so another one of the people that were in our 20 group, Amanda George, she would do the same thing where she would spiff her staff or her BDC employees and say, hey, if you do a video, you can do one every week and you get spiffed $200 for it and deliver me a 2 to 3 minute piece on a very specific feature on a car. So she would have two employees that would do that consistently, and they got better at it. And yes, they started out doing it for the money, but they eventually did it because they loved it and they realized that, hey, this isn't as bad as what I thought it was. And Ashley, like same thing for you. It was like pulling teeth. I know you've talked about this multiple times. It's like pulling teeth to get someone just to shoot a short video without even them on camera
Yeah.
of a car, of them talking about the car and just walking around it. It was like pulling teeth, you said.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, you're just holding the camera, and you might have your, like, finger in it while you're shooting the around the car, like, your face doesn't even have to be in it, but they would be like, "Oh, I'm not I need a haircut," or,
Yeah,
"Oh, tomorrow's my, day off. I'm gonna go out the door now."
exactly. And on
So
that
tell
point,
me,
Ashley, we make so many excuses about why it's not a good day or a good time to do that. Salespeople are the same way. Leaders, managers are the same way. It's not a good day to do this. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. I'm doing that.
Mhm.
And that kind of tells you the underlying reason why people are so apprehensive to get on camera is they're afraid of what they look like. And if you really help them overcome that in a good way and build them up and show them how to do things very specific ways that help them present well on camera, then they know how to do it again. And they love that.
And outside of giving money, what tricks have you figured out to help really encourage people to hit the button and go?
Yeah. So what I've found is that, so right now I do help dealers do this. So I will come into a store, and the really easy way to break the ice with people, especially when I don't know the sales staff or I don't know the managers and we're about to ask them to do content, is we'll get involved in a very simple conversation like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's why I'm here. Here's kind of the goals that I have today, and here's who brought me in, like super fast, just like that. And I'll say, what do you have going on today? Like, what are you working on? What are you excited about? If it's a salesperson, I might even go in and directly ask the salesperson, just in conversation, hey, you've got a lot of new Fords out there. Which one's your favorite? Or, hey, there's a Ford Mach-E out there. What's your favorite feature on that car? Okay, so that's one favorite feature. What are like two more of your favorite features on that car? Okay, great. So those three things on that Mach-E, consumers need to know that. And what I'd love to do is kind of show you a way that you can create this on camera. I'll hold the camera, I'll film you, I'll guide you through everything, I'll feed you the words. But if we go out there and do that, this will help consumers, this will help you grow on camera, and I'll be there to edit it for you. So we know that what we're releasing is a good professional image of you. So that really overcomes that apprehension of why they have a problem with that. The other thing it does, it front loads the conversation, and it lets you chase down what they're excited about. Instead of me walking in and saying, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to film a video and we're going to talk about these three things on this Mach-E. They might have no interest in Mach-E. And we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it that way. You need to do this. You need to do that. What I'm doing is I'm chasing what they're excited about. So if they say, hey, we've got a used Ford Mustang out there. I like Ford Mustangs. I own a Ford Mustang. I have aftermarket stuff on my Ford Mustang. And then all of a sudden that actually turns into us creating content around their Ford Mustang because they're excited about that. Even if we don't use the content on their Ford Mustang, that lets them learn like what to talk about. It lets us show how we can get closer to that authentic sense of them. And then it lets us just practice that over and over again. So that's like really low hanging fruit. A lot of times we go in saying, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. But if we can find that space where that salesperson or that manager loves talking about one thing specifically, we need to get them talking about that one thing.
And then branch out. So do you have like a series of questions that you typically like to start with to get them to start talking? And you're not recording at this point, it sounds like.
Correct. That's right. Because this is just like they're standing right in front of me and we're just having a conversation. So I love talking to people. I love having conversations with people, but I guide, like if there's a content creator on staff or if they have just a videographer and they don't have like that outgoing over the top energy, like I'll just say, hey, go find one person, ask them a few things and say, hey, phrase it this way. If we were to film a piece of content, what are some pieces of content that you'd like to be a part of? Or you can go into it and say, hey, what vehicle out there excites you? You can go those two directions, and now all of a sudden you find what they like, and then you can go out and shoot content with them. And then you can teach them down the road how to shoot the same content for themselves on social so they can talk to their audience.
Because I'm finding it easy at a dealership to shoot the kind of content that a TV production studio from the 90s would shoot, and it is angles of the sign, and now we can spruce it up and have a drone fly past the logo outside and the trees and all the inventory on the lot. But I'm finding like more success through just like getting a phone or take it a step further with the DSLR and interviewing the staff and getting that personality, that vibrancy of the team. And it's like what you're saying. It's like, what is your favorite experience about connecting somebody with a vehicle?
That's right.
And if they have one, hopefully they can tell us that story. And what's your favorite thing about working here? And get them to talk about the fun, and the stuff that they enjoy. And you've been a service tech here for 20 years. What have you learned about Ford? And why should people now it's producing a ton of content that what have you been doing for like the distribution of the content? So it's easy for a dealership to stroke the check, get a bunch of content created, and hopefully have somebody like Jordan come by and really shepherd them into making the content. But do you help with the distribution as well?
That's a great question. So there's a few different channels of where I see this content going and working. Sometimes I go out and I shoot a TV commercial. So we'll go shoot a 30-second spot and they're going to release it on local TV. They might also use that on OTT platforms. So in those situations, they probably already have a provider that's hooked up. Like if it's local TV, they know who to go to. If they're doing OTT, it's probably because they're already educated on that and know who to work with. Sometimes I'll help with distribution through OTT platforms or through digital streaming. I don't do it directly, but I have connections that help with that. And then if we look at social channels, I will help a little bit more to fine tune that. So if we were going to shoot a piece, we always think about what the end audience is and where it's going, especially on social. So if we're just creating organic social content and it's a salesperson that we're training on that for the salesperson to deliver, they're going to distribute that to their own audience to curate, the 1,000 or 2,000 friends and to just talk about who they are, where they're at, what they're doing. If we're doing one at the store level or the group level, we want to continue pushing that brand. And most likely, we want to use paid ads behind that to get in front of more people. So the dealer can spend about $1,000, get in front of 100,000 people for that one video. And it's pretty easy. But we need to have the right audiences to be able to do that. So I'll help them define, hey, we want to do and use first party data for this. Or maybe we want to upload current owners of vehicles in your zip code that have this vehicle if we're talking about something that's service related or acquisition related for one specific vehicle. There's also this really cool thing you can do with collision centers. So I just started this and I just started untapping this with a client is they have a collision center and they do a lot more high-end collision work. So what we do now is when I'm there, we'll shoot different manufacturers and talk about the damage on that vehicle and build the value in a really short piece about why it's so much better to take it to them. And there's a few reasons why, like insurance always wants to cut corners. Insurance wants to pay the lowest rate, but we're talking about like an Audi RS5. We're talking about an Audi R8. We're talking about Range Rovers, new ones. So $100,000 vehicles. And you want the owner of that wants that repaired the right way. So in a really short piece of content, we can talk about 20 to 30 seconds about why it's not just a cosmetic thing, show them the inside of something and why it's different there and make that the educational piece. But then the call to action is actually, hey, we do work like this at our collision center. Next time you're in an accident, you should come to us for this. And what we can do is we can put that in front of, if it's an Audi in that piece of content, and again, this is like really detailed, but this is important. If there's an Audi inside of that content, we can use Polk data to get that in front of other owners of Audis in that zip code. And the delivery method is through Facebook on that piece. So now all of a sudden, that Audi owner sees that, hey, that's an Audi right there. That's a high-end one. And we could even target down to the model level when we use Polk information like that, when we're using Conquest data is what it's called. So now all of a sudden, they see that owner sees that content and they connect with it deeper. And then we kind of trick them into watching it because we want them to see like, oh, dude, like how bad is the damage? That's the hook. How bad is the damage?
Yeah. What does my car look like without a bumper?
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And they see themselves in that. So I will help with delivery to get that in front of the right people because that's basically the whole strategy is how we deliver it and who we deliver it to.
Do you feel like there's like a separation in what like general managers and GSMs and people want to shoot and think they should shoot versus what actually moves the needle for the dealership?
100%. The problem is they're not trained. So a GM or a GSM, they know social's valuable. They know content's valuable, but they'll sit down in front of a camera and they'll go like this. Hey, my name is Jordan. I'm the general manager here at this Chevrolet store or at this Toyota store. And here's why you should buy a car from us. And then they'll stop recording. As opposed to, hey, we were just working this deal, and here's something that was kind of crazy about this. This was not your average customer. This was not your average situation, but we were able to help them out of this specific thing. Maybe you go into talking about like credit history and provide education, provide value that way. But the really important thing is getting like a good hook and a good presentation at the very beginning of that. It's not sitting down and saying who you are, where you work, what you do. And in the nicest way possible, nobody cares. Nobody cares what your name is. Nobody cares where you work. And again, I say that in the nicest way possible because, like, I care about them. If I saw a GM do that, like, I'm connected with them. I like them. In fact, I probably love them. But their audience or who they're talking to, they don't care. And for the most part, they already know who you are, especially if they follow you. If you're doing a paid ad too, nobody knows who you are. Your name doesn't matter. Where you're at doesn't matter. It only helps how you can help or educate or entertain that audience.
Yeah, and I like it. It kind of has flipped the structure of a format of a video, an ad, from build up, hook, call to action to just a hook right at the beginning because people are scrolling 300 feet a day, supposedly, with their
That's right.
thumb.
Football field.
And your job and the dealer's job is to get them to stop scrolling for a second and start to listen versus building up how long they've been there, how important they are, the awards and accolades they've won, versus here's somebody similar to you. And here's what was amazing. Like, here's what gives me my kicks at my job is we helped this person qualify, or we, helped the third person in their family get a pickup truck. And now they're, it's like getting a real story out of somebody, making them feel good. And then I like the direction that you're going with stores and getting a lot of different pieces of content that makes sense for different people, but also for the same person with their journey changing through the dealership relationship, from not knowing about the dealership to trading in and trading up their vehicle, and then doing the services, the parts, the maintenance, the collision, the referrals in between. And what does that messaging look like from the dealership going through that customer's news feed versus it being just a continual feed of maybe if they're getting targeted, it's, you know, the manufacturer's incentives at best.
Yeah.
But to have it be the vibrancy from the store level, especially if they're like in a competitive market where there's a lot of points with their brand. So what do you feel like content wise? It sounds like it's going to be different compared, like, depending on where the customer is. But what do you feel like really is helping a dealership move the needle with new car sales?
Yeah, with new car sales, it'll really vary based off of what our delivery point is. Sometimes it is valuable to talk about a really specific new car sale on linear TV. Perfect example, not a client of mine. Full disclosure. Larry H. Miller, who's in Colorado, they have a store in Denver. If you go buy a Fiat 500e from them, it is $0 a month lease plus taxes and fees. So if you advertise it that way, that drives action. And I talked to the GM at that store and asked him more of his thought process behind this. So yes, like, they're trying to sell 50 500Es in like 3 months. But for them, they're trying to build the allocation for that. They're trying to get buy-in from Fiat, all that. But what he did was, because he ran that campaign in December, he got 600 people that came in and said they wanted to be a part of that. So it really depends is what the answer is. Because if you have something that's crazy like that, you can run that anywhere and drive action. For new car sales, I just saw another piece of content just this morning from a good friend of mine, Zach Kinch. So he's cool with me sharing his name, all that kind of stuff. So Zach Kinch, general manager at Bob Roman Toyota in Lafayette, Indiana, just created this really good piece. And it was created for TikTok, but it was on Instagram as well. And it was just him talking about what vehicles and what models at Toyota will be affected by the upcoming tariffs. And it wasn't him saying like, oh yeah, the prices are going to go up here, prices are going to go up there. All it's doing is him walking around the lot, and it's cut together really nice. It's him walking up to the window stickers and saying, hey, here's a Toyota Tundra. Let's see where it's made. Oh, cool. Princeton, Indiana, no tariff. Oh, okay, next one. Okay, we have a newer Toyota Prius right here. This one's made in Japan, tariff. And he goes on the next ones. So what that's doing is it's kind of educating people around the models that are available. It's reminding them of the tariffs exist, not necessarily playing on that and saying you need to come buy a car right now, but just educating the audience that way. So that's a really good example of one, a piece that will work well and will distribute well through organic methods. It's a good piece. It's got a good hook. He's got a great personality that performs well. But that's another one you can put some money behind and do a paid ad on Meta, Facebook, Instagram to get in front of even more people when it's in the right area. So you could easily target, within 10, 15 miles of that store, put that piece in front of as many people as possible and just remind them, hey, here's someone talking about something important and here's some education around that. That's a really simple method of delivery and just ways we can talk about stores and what we sell, especially on the new car side.
Yeah, and that's not getting a production crew. That's not getting high-end
Right.
cameras. That's not even getting a person out there to help shoot it.
That's right.
It's just grabbing the phone, shooting it, being like, okay, here's what I've learned just by walking around my own lot. Here's the ones that
Yeah.
are manufactured in the country, and here's what's not. And then it sounds like he recorded that and initially posted that on TikTok.
Yeah, for him, his primary method of delivery is always TikTok, but he'll use the same content in a few other places. So the reason I bring up TikTok is so you know what it looks like, what it feels like. It's got a nice overlay at the top that just says which Toyotas are affected by the tariff. Simple visual hook like that. And obviously he's standing in front of cars too. So that's what that looks like. You're right.
Yeah, it's like in my experience too, if we've got some TikTok creative that's working well, let's advertise that. Let's
Yeah,
promote it on TikTok. Sure. The targeting's a little suspicious sometimes on TikTok,
sure.
but on Instagram, on Facebook, using that same creative, even having the TikTok logo on it, outperforms all of the automotive inventory ads and things like that just because it looks cool and it stops
Yeah.
your finger versus inventory and prices. Are you doing much with TikTok creative specifically for dealers?
That's a great question. What I use TikTok for is kind of like two specific areas. So there's the testing phase, and then there's an execution phase. I want to talk about the testing phase real fast because even if you're not on TikTok and if you're not a big user of TikTok, you can still use it for testing content to see what works well. So most people know this when you post up the TikTok that goes out to everybody, really just based off of interests that are in that vehicle. I'm sorry, that piece of content compared to what the user's already watching. And it's at a global scale, can be at a global scale. But what that means to us locally, if we post a piece of content there and that our normal like net number for our average view count, let's say is 500 or 1,000, and then that piece performs and gets 10,000 views, so 10x, that tells us that's a great piece. We should use that same exact piece in other areas, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, even if we went through and used it in non-social places, it tells us it's a good piece. And now, obviously, there's a lot of subjective pieces to that. So that's the testing phase. That can work for anybody. For the execution side of it, using that as an organic social component is a great way to do that. There are
Mhm.
people that I know that we're helping execute like really low level paid ads. For right now, because the jury's still out for me on TikTok ads. Yes, I know that they work. Yes, I know you can use targeting for that. But because I'm familiar with Meta and I know how we can target those and I know how we can build audiences that way, that's why I've always leaned in that direction. I'm not saying TikTok ads are bad. I'm just saying there might be another better way to reach that same audience or a more specific audience that's localized through Facebook and through Instagram.
Totally. And it's like, so they have like signals within Facebook and Instagram and pixels that have decades of data to be able to identify who's shopping versus TikTok, which is
That's
brand
right.
new. And what I'm finding with our TikTok tests that we're doing is it goes really outside of our backyard. And so we're going geographically really spread out, even though we're trying to refine it and tell TikTok to refine it. And then the traffic coming to the website bounces pretty quickly, like insanely quickly compared to social, which is already a short time on site. So I think it's cool to be there. It's great to be there because we're ideally the dealership in your market that's doing it and making that impact. But yeah, the jury's still out. I totally agree.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a good organic social component. Like if you can generate followers, whether it's your own sales staff that can help build personalities that way, or other stuff. With TikTok, because it's more personality driven, that's a lot harder to train sales staff as far as content creation. Like when I say personality driven, I mean they're probably doing skits, but that's probably the format, or they have to have like really good like storytelling on camera with nobody else in the room. That's so hard to repeat, and it's not replicatable.
Yeah, I heard this is from Ryan Capaccia, I think is how you say his last name. He was like the head of automotive and travel for
Yeah,
TikTok for a
at
while,
TikTok.
which are
That's
two
right.
massive industries and an impossible role for anybody to conquer either one. But he was saying that there was like the number one Escalade salesperson was out of rural Indiana or somewhere like that. And he was just making TikTok content about Escalades and shipping them nationally. I didn't look into the story much further, except for like, that's pretty cool. That's a cool way to get your content out there. And he was an early adopter in it. Um, but yeah, now it's like, what can we do as advertisers to help our customers or help dealers make more relevant, applicable content that resonates with their market, and sort of at the same time like break any of like the misconceptions that they have, fears that they have, and like bad habits? Like, are there um like recurring bad habits you feel like dealers have when it comes to videos?
I think the biggest bad habit that's recurring is abandonment. They get in, they do 1, 2, or 3, and they give up. They either say, I'm not good at it, I don't like doing this, or I'm not seeing the results. And it takes a lot more than 2 or 3 videos to really get that figured out. Just like anything. I know we always use like the analogy of riding a bike, but like when you rode a bike, this works out perfectly. My daughter's, so when 6 months ago, she was about to turn 5. She wanted to ride a bike. So I kid you not, we sat out late at night, multiple times past her bedtime when it's dark outside, and it's her in the street trying to pedal, and she falls off her bike. Dude, it took, I don't know, 10, 12 days of us doing that every single night for an hour or two. Like, because she wanted to do it on her own. I'm like, hey, that's fine. She's a strong, independent 4-year-old, just like all 4-year-olds are. But she wanted to do that on her own. And it took a lot more than just 3 tries. Because if she gave up after 3 tries, it would have only been one night and we would have spent like 3 minutes doing that. But there's so much more to it than just trying it for a few times. So most people abandon. They don't go on and keep doing it. They think they're awkward on camera. They don't like it. They hear one negative comment from one person and they say, I'm done. This is stupid. This is the dumbest thing ever. Dude, you're still learning. That's perfectly fine. Like, you're a person. You got to keep growing. You got to keep getting in there and doing it. That's really the biggest thing, is abandonment, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like everything. It's like yoga or working out. It's like, okay, I'm done. I just crushed yoga or something. It's like, no, well, you practiced yoga. You gotta, you gotta keep going.
Delete the comments and move on.
Nah, exactly. Yeah, delete the comment. This one's kind of a bit more personal, but like, so I studied jujitsu. I am 2 years into studying jujitsu. I am not going to arrive for at least another 10 years, guaranteed, because it takes that long to really understand the craft and really master that. So we can't expect ourselves to go out and shoot 3 videos over 3 days and think that we've arrived. Because like in a much more real sense, people might look at Andrew or Ashley or me and say that we've arrived with whatever we're doing, and we haven't. Like, we're still learning and we're still growing, and we've still got a long ways to go no matter what we're doing.
Yeah. And you look back at the first one you did, like, oh God, that was cringy. But
That's right.
clearly we've come a long way. Like with dealers that hopefully are listening, maybe, maybe not, but they're getting started from scratch. They know they need to do this. They want to do this. What do you tell them? Like, where do they start? What's the easiest first step?
The easiest first step is going out and doing it. I've seen too many people say, I don't have the right equipment. I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to do. They either want to do it on their own or they want to do it with the team, and they just don't know what to do. So getting out there and doing it is really important. This is not me saying that you need to hire me to do this, but there are times where you can have someone come in and help you get through those first couple steps. So it might be a friend that does it. It might be a guy at a different store. Maybe you're in a group and there's a GM at another store that's killing it right now. Just ask him to come spend some time with you so you can get started and say, hey, I got these 2 or 3 questions. Like, how do we get this going? How do we get that started? Because that's going to help you get over that hurdle, that very first one of just creating. Once you start creating, it'll become a little bit easier. And then eventually you're going to have your notes app completely full on your phone of ideas that you want to shoot. And then you're going to have a backlog of content. So sometimes too, there are people out there like me who will come film it for you at your store, whether it's low-end production or high-end production. If you really don't want to do it, you can pay someone to do it. It costs a lot of money, seriously. But you can pay someone to do it. You can pay someone to come hold the camera or come guide you through that. Whether it's high production value, whether it's low production, they're just shooting on their phone. That's a few ways you can get through that hurdle. 1, start creating. 2, focus on your hook. What is the most valuable thing you can tell your audience about whatever it is you're talking about? And that's a testing thing, because as you grow, you're going to get better at talking about hooks. Let's go back to that collision center example. What we can do, because of the type of content that we're shooting there, the hook is so strong on some of these. And for the most part, sometimes it's the same hook over and over again. And it's completely fine to do that. So if they're standing in front of a damaged vehicle that just got sideswiped, the hook will be something like, think this vehicle is just a sideswipe, think again. And then you're going into talking about a few things. There's a good visual hook because you have the car behind you that has a minor scratch on it. It's got a good audible hook so that it builds up that curiosity and you're like, man, what is it? How bad is it? And then you have to deliver on that too and really show like, hey, here's how bad it was. Here's what this could cost. And then if it's not repaired correctly, here's what could happen. And yes, there's like a call to action at the end. Yes, there's some brand building that, but that's some really easy, low-level hanging fruit that you can do to create content. The Collision Center has it easy, by the way. That's such a good visual hook.
For sure. I think it's completely underutilized too.
Yeah, no one does it. No one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, it's like the distant fourth-born stepchild for the general manager's mind or the principal. It's like, okay, yes, if you can impact that, let's do that. And I feel like as an industry, we're like in a good position for us to be focused on the bottom line and what can we control with fixed ops and parts and services and loyalty and collision center, which is the first time I've said collision center in a few weeks because like people don't talk about it too much. But it's cool content. It makes some cool content. And especially if we can put that in front of people driving that brand.
That's right.
And it could be the way to introduce that whole dealership to people that are in the market that didn't buy from them, but drive their brand and start to get that relationship with them because they see them as the expert in their brand that they're already driving. What about service department? Are there specific things that you've shot in a service department that have been pretty effective?
Okay, great question. And let's tie it into your last question too, is like, what is a low-level piece of content that someone could execute right now? In the service department, think about this. You've got technicians that touch oil all day long. They know the difference between used oil and fresh oil. But as a consumer, we maybe have never seen that. Or an air filter. We do air filters all the time, and technicians, I guarantee, pulled out an air filter today that looks like a squirrel's nest was in there. So why not show those visually about the differences between the two and then build value in it that way? That's a really good piece that could just work as really low entertainment. Low level education and entertainment for your organic social. But that's another great example of using content to get it in front of the right people using paid ads. So now all of a sudden you can just put that in front of everyone. We're talking about an air filter, and then build value in why the service department goes to that extent and checks those out that way. And it's same thing. Like technicians see that stuff all day long, but consumers never get to see that. Like
Right.
how often is there a full teardown of something and we never just even go shoot content of that and ask that guy like what he's working on and what he's doing. And I mean, this would not work well if you're a Range Rover shop, so do not do this. But if you had a teardown of a Range Rover engine and you wanted to talk about how difficult it is to do that, where you have to lift the entire body up off the frame, like that's really cool. I think that's really cool as a consumer. I think that's really cool to see a dealership doing that. They're so skilled that they can take apart thousands of fasteners to get to that point. I think that's cool. Again, do not go shoot that. That's very like gray area content. But like that's a really good example of what works well for consumers and what can build up your brand long term.
Right. And if we can be timely as advertisers to get that content of the service department in front of people who drive their brand, but also like if the average customer comes back to deal, like 3 out of 10 customers come back for routine services, that's something that we can look at to make an impact on. And let's get the service
For sure.
department ads in front of everybody who's purchased a vehicle from us, even if they're doing services already. But just make sure we're constantly advertising to our own customer base and we own that customer base.
That's right.
And then we can look at Polk and conquesting and getting in front of more people who drive our brand, but to really solidify why they should be doing their routine services with a pro that specializes in their brand.
That's exactly right. And like you and I know this, we call that using first party data. You know, the average GM or the average GSM or decision maker around that might not know what that means. But for us, like we know all we do is we either get in the DMS or we get in the CRM and we can export an email list and then use that in Meta or other delivery methods for ads. And now all of a sudden we can target those same people with those deliverables. And we know they bought a car from us because that's all we're pulling from is sold data.
Right. And what doing everything we can to help bridge the gap and shake hands between the fixed and variable ops to where as
That's
soon
right.
as somebody purchases, it's in their mailbox, their inbox, their news feed, their stories, their reels to come in and do services with us.
That's right.
And here's the contract that came with your vehicle. And here's this technician that's been here forever.
That's exactly right. And think about how many service departments that give a free oil change or some sort of free service for a period of time. And we're not even telling the customer that, or our service advisors are too busy, or our service BDC is too busy to do outbound calls for that. How simple would it be to just run a paid ad for everyone that's bought a car? So let's say you sell 2,000 new Toyotas. That is very cheap to even run 10 ads to those people. So if it's in front of 2,000 people and you want to run 10 ads to each person, which is overkill, you're talking about 20,000 either graphic placements or video placements for that. And that'll cost what, $200 for 20,000 people? It's relatively
Totally.
cheap. It's cheap to do that.
It's in my experience, like the least utilized ad strategy that is by far the most cost effective. If you go after your own customer base, you're not introducing the dealership.
Correct.
You're not convincing them to shop with, they've already shopped with you.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, how do we want them to feel about having shopped with us? Do we want them to refer people to us? Do we want them to come back in for routine services? Do we want them to trade in their vehicle? Do we have free car washes? Like, what can we put back in front of those customers? That is, yeah, if it's like a $10 cost per thousand, you've got 10,000 past customers. It's like, cool, there's $10 to reach each person once, and then you throw in $100 to get them 10 times. That's an
Yeah.
amazing $100 investment right there.
That return's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jordan, what do people do to connect dots with you? What's the best way to follow you or contact you if they're looking for some help doing some content?
Yeah. So it's funny. So Even if they just want to ask questions, just connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a DM. My cell phone number is on my LinkedIn. Go to my LinkedIn profile, connect with me, shoot me a DM. And just like I said, sometimes you need someone just to ask questions to. I will literally tell you everything. Like, hey, do this, do that. Oh, you're looking at shooting that? Okay. You want to get this DSLR instead of that one. Or you can shoot this type of format or that type of format. A GM I just saw on LinkedIn the other day, he just started shooting video content. He made that announcement through video. He thought it was weird, but I messaged him and said, hey, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. Not selling anything. I just love helping people and I love helping guide them down the right path for that. So just connect with me on LinkedIn and I'm there for you.
Do you have any sort of guide or anything about like, you're ready to get started with content? Here's a guide for the first 5 things to shoot or anything?
Dude, that's a great idea. So
Okay,
that's a
let's do
valuable
it.
piece of content. So now there's like 2 or 3 things that with that idea, Andrew, that now we can create. So by the time that someone sees this, I'm going to have a guide out. I'll just put a white paper out and say, hey, here's your first 3 steps. Cause that's an awesome idea. And Andrew,
Yeah, and give it to
I'll
people
give you
like
credit
me
in the
who are
footer.
advertisers to hand to my new clients like,
Yeah.
hey, we've got great content. We're doing a lot of design. We're doing production behind the scenes, but here's some easy stuff that's low-hanging fruit that you can shoot with a phone. And I'll mail you guys a microphone too, a little lapel mic, start shooting some stuff. And here's some accountability that we'll have with you guys.
Yeah, I love that. So by the time that somebody listens to this, there'll be a white paper out. Check out my LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay, find
Credit
Jordan
to Andrew Street,
Cox.
baby. Yeah.
Jordan Cox on LinkedIn. Cool. Well, man, thank you for your time, brother. It's always refreshing talking with you, and I love what you're doing for the industry.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I love what you guys are doing. I love having the conversations with you and kind of seeing you around. And thanks for leading the charge.
And thank you, Ashley, for setting this up.
Oh, and Ashley, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was great chatting with you again. Yeah, it's always nice to connect with old 20 group buddies.
Friends for life.